Ladies and gentlemen, gather around for a unique look into the world of custom motorcycling. We gathered some of the industry's top builders and fabricators on this stage to show you their skills live and in person. Watch as they chop, grind, and weld their creations into existence right before your very eyes. Feel free to ask questions at any time directly to your host, Pat Jansen. The doors to the shop are open, so pull up a stool, kick back, and welcome to the Grease and Gears Garage.
Turned on. Now I'm turned on. All right, Sandusky, Ohio. Progressive Motorcycle Insurance has gifted you with a great many things as one of the title sponsors here. One of the big things they've gifted you with is me. No, Grease and Gears Garage. I'm Matt Jansen here with Grease and Gears. I got a shop in Iowa called Sin Central Garage. We travel around. Chris, Mark, and I. Mark and Chris have flat broke chops and rods out of Pittsburgh. And we go around with all of our tools, put them on stage, and then invite a builder friend of ours with custom motorcycles to come up and show us one thing that they do typically on a day in, day out basis at their shop. And the reason we do this is because we want to inspire you, encourage you, and help you see how you can deepen that relationship with your motorcycle. Whether it's a dirt bike, a BMW, a Harley, a Honda, whatever it is, you can customize your bike, and you'll be able to do one thing. And so we thank you, Progressive Motorcycle Insurance, for having us here. Their partners, Castrol. If you guys come close to the stage, I got some stuff to give away. Hey, shut up, Will. You're tramping all over him. We're going to give away free stuff. Right? They don't want you. He wants it. He wants it. He wants it. I got some other things here to throw. I got to tie those. I'll give those away later. Here's another. Oh, you want a Castrol hat? These have metal on them. Be careful. Be careful, kids. Here we go. Look at that. Oh, I missed. Go catch that. Go over there and get that one. Don't be lazy. Bend your ass over, man. What's wrong with you? Oh, look at that. Look at that. You want some more? Hey, you got close. You're a nice guy. I nearly got that one on your head. I got one more hat. Ow! My shoulder. Threw my shoulder out. All right. I know what you're thinking, though. What? Progressive's partners are Castrol, Grease and Gears Garage, Cycle Source Magazine, and Indian. And I'm not throwing any Indian merch off. You know why? Because Indian stepped up this year. If you go over, see them at the Flo's Chop Shop or right back here at their merch tent back here as you go towards Barrel House. Indian Motorcycle is giving away a 2018 Indian Scout. All you got to do is go down there and get some free merch, sign up, and you could be entered to win a free 2018 Indian Scout. So Grease and Gears Garage here today, show you some stuff that we do every day in the shop. This is a bike here. It's based on a Sportster chassis. We're building it for Progressive Insurance. They asked us to build them a bike on stage this year, so as we travel around, we've been building that. And we got Will Ramsey from Faith Forgotten Choppers with us, and he's going to show us today how we're doing a little drop seat. But Chris Cowan, the founder, editor, and owner of Cycle Source Magazine. Yeah. That's what we call a smattering of applause. Thank you very much.
That's right.
Anyway,
early,
Chris,
right?
tell us why we cut up a perfectly good Sportster frame.
Well, let's see if we can get that picture up to show you guys the stock
rendering?
Sportster that we started with. So anybody that's familiar with a stock Evo Sportster frame, the biggest problem with that frame, and the reason why most of us hardtail them, is when you come off of this line here, you got this great line coming down from the neck on the backbone. You come off of this and it goes straight out like this. You know, and that line's just, it's so disturbing that we're most of the time willing to give up suspension just to get a cool line like this hardtail over here. Let me turn that around and show you guys. So this is essentially the same frame. It's just been hardtailed. and see the continuation of that great line through the backbone down here. But the problem is you give up suspension. So I've been watching Jeff Cochran for a while doing his drop seat shovel heads, where he's taking shovel head motorcycles and keeping the suspension and doing a little drop seat frame deal. So I went to my buddy Will. I was like, man, we got to do this for Sportster. You know, nobody's doing it yet. We talked to Jeff about it, and you know, I spent a day down at Will's place, and he designed this whole drop seat for us, and he's going to do it in front of you guys here today, so you can see how to keep this great line, follow through here. And this is still all stock stuff. All we did was cut away the fixturing, and man, when we got the first mock-up of this, it was so beautiful that I'm kind of hoping Will develops this into a kit and we can bring them out, because it totally changes the look of a Sportster.
All right, Will, come on. Show us the magic. Give us the razzle. I'll bring the dazzle. He's got the sizzle.
All right, guys. So Chris came down to my shop, Faith Forgotten Choppers in New Albany, Indiana, this last week, and he brought this 2002 Sportster frame and gave me an idea what he wanted to do with this drop seat configuration. So we did a lot of the work in the shop because it would take us hours up here grinding and molding all these castings into shape. But and we have some video footage.
She's getting it up now, but while she's bringing that up,
okay,
tell everybody, because one of the most important steps in this, man, is you don't want to just come in here with a torch or a big grinding wheel or a cutoff disc and take away all the material really, really fast. You really need to plan this out and take your time. We spent the most amount of time removing the stock fixturing.
Removing the stock fixturing and then just dressing everything down to the metal without removing any of the parent material, any of the existing material. With this backbone, you really don't want to compromise the strength of the frame when you start removing the old geometry. So we started with the Sawzall and just hacked everything off and left stock, and then spent a good hour, 2 hours with a flap wheel and DA sanders to remove all the weld and all the existing material and bring it all back to the backbone without removing the material of the backbone. And that's real important. You got to take your time when you're dressing off old welds, and take your time to use your eyes and pay attention, and not just burn right into the tubing, because if you burn into this and knock out 50 thousandths of that wall thickness, you're going to reduce the strength and run into a lot of problems, because this is a high stress area on a motorcycle frame. When you're looking at a rigid frame, your highest stress area is always going to be your neck, but your other two high stress areas on a frame are where the two rear legs intersect the backbone, and of course your axle, especially on a rigid frame, because those are just the areas that are going to take the most abuse. So it's very important when you're dressing off the welds and dressing off the old material, removing the old material, not to just dig in and be rough and fast with it. You've got to step your craftsmanship up and pay attention to what you're doing, and we'll use a flap wheel to get close, but then we'll take the extra time to sit there with a DA and really sand it in and finish it as best as we can.
Okay, so back in the production booth, they're ready for us. I'm going to throw up the picture real quick for the donor bike that we started with. This was a basic 2002 883 that had been converted. The top end had been converted to a 1250 kit. We got it at a good buy, but like I said, that straight line, it just makes it an ugly motorcycle for us. So we're going to do some work on that.
Not if you're riding one, though.
Well,
for our purposes, it wasn't what we were looking for.
Yeah.
Say somebody's motorcycle's ugly? Are you stupid? We're on stage.
You have a 2002 883, don't you? You're entirely too big for that motorcycle.
I know.
My shop is Faith Forgotten Choppers. We don't leave anything
You
stock.
don't leave anything stock.
We chop everything up, so we redesign.
So like Will was saying, we had a lot of work to get done to figure this thing out. But I videoed everything. We got a video we're going to bring up and show you guys all the stuff that we went through while we were at Faith Forgotten Choppers.
She doesn't pay attention at all.
Tell everybody what we're doing here.
So right now we fixtured the frame up on my Blueco table. I just wanted to be able to eyeball everything and keep it all straight. This fixture table allows me to do a great deal of very accurate chassis work. And even for a quick job like this where I'm not necessarily locking the neck in or worried about the geometry up here, just being able to get the the frame completely straight and allow me to work with my eyes and see everything visually. If anything's crooked on a table, it's so hard to visualize and keep things straight. So the fixture tables are nice. These weld tables here are great. They're nice and flat. The Blueco that I have in my shop is sort of the top of the line fixture table. But we just basically got it straight, locked it in.
Virtually impossible to travel with something like a Blueco. I mean, it's such a great piece of equipment, but
but you got to have a forklift just to move it around the shop.
Right.
This is weldtables.com, and they do a good job. They'll send you this kit out. So if you're looking for something in your shop, this makes a great table.
So yeah, and if you guys are not familiar, the reason for all these different holes up here, all these little fixtures you see at the bottom of this frame, it's supporting the rails. It gives you a place to access. You know, these holes are indexed to give you access from many different angles, so you can get that lockdown. You can keep your straight lines, make sure everything's level, and it provides you with a foundation that you're gonna, when you change a frame geometry, you want to make sure you don't have to come back and guess whether something has moved or not.
So this is how custom motorcycle builders get jiggy with it? I went right there.
Oh.
Yeah. Bump.
But you know, speaking of getting jiggy, while you guys are still watching this video, on tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be building a jig right here.
So, obviously we're getting ready to cut a frame, and once you cut something, you can't really remove it, or you can't really put it back. So I like to take time and kind of sketch out where I'm going to make my cuts, just with like a little silver Sharpie. And right now, Chris and I are kind of discussing his vision and his design. I'm trying to get an idea from him on what he wants, what his vision is, so that I can make it come to life here. And we're just kind of laying out where we're going to cut the material. Again, cutting here at the intersection with the backbone, I just want to make sure that I'm not going to end up cutting into this backbone. So I give myself a little bit of stock with the Sawzall and just lay out some lines so I have a visual guide, so I'm not going to make a mistake. You know, after 9-10 years of doing this, you make enough mistakes, you learn the tricks to kind of cue yourself so that you won't continue to make mistakes.
Now right here we're talking about the fact that this bar was added.
Now there's a couple ways to deal with fixturing. Whenever you're going to remove something from a frame, you have to be concerned about how much internal stress there was in the frame when it was built, how well they welded it. You know, they may have just hammered the welds in and created a lot of internal stress. It was fixtured when it was built, so it's all straight. But once you start cutting stuff away, everything can start springing out of alignment. So on a table like my Blueco, I could have built up a fixturing system and locked all this in, but we wanted to make this something we could do here and something more practical, and really that would be overkill. This is plenty. In the video here, I'm measuring and cutting a piece of stock steel that is going to fit between these two rear casting points, or they're actually forgings, but of the frame right behind where I'm going to cut, so we can just kind of tack this piece in and keep any of these legs from trying to spring out of alignment. So the fit had to be precise. I actually went to the lathe to turn it, used a pair of calipers to measure it, and get it as precise as we could. We wanted it a good snug fit in here. And this is just simply mounted between the two bungs on the inside of the shocks. And then I just put a little tack, a good sized tack weld on both sides. It'll be really easy to cut loose and dress off afterwards. But this is sufficient to hold this in alignment while we redesign and rebuild this top section here. Without this, you really run the risk of something jumping out, you know, a quarter to half an inch, depending on how well the frame was built in the first place and how much stress would be found in the frame just based on welding. You know, a frame is a weldment, so you can be super precise with your fixturing, but at the end of the day, your welding and your sequencing when you weld really defines how accurate the frame is going to come out of the fixture. And in high production stuff where they're just hammering it, you know, it's going to be less accurate. To a smaller shop that's going to take time and really pay attention to precision and quartering the welds and balancing weld draw. And that's something I pay a lot of attention to in my shop. We just take a lot of pride in trying to take things to that next level with fabrication. So we got a set of brand new Sawzall blades for this because we knew we were going to be putting in a lot of work. Yeah. Chris went to Home Depot and bought those. But, you know, we had to cut through all this solid forged piece here. And it took quite a while. Yeah.
My batteries fell out.
So again, I pay really close attention to where I'm cutting. I want to cut as close as possible to save myself time as far as having to grind off all the existing material that's left behind, but I don't want to cut so close that I risk running the Sawzall blade into the backbone.
But now I will tell you, and you'll tell folks too, if you're going to try to do this stuff at home, you're pretty skilled. The worst thing you can do, like I just made a joke about those Sawzall blades, but those are the expensive red Sawzall blades. Yeah. Those things are expensive. What are they like? I mean, you can get a Sawzall blade for probably $3, $4, a regular one. Those things are going to cost you, a 3-pack's going to cost you $50.
Yeah.
And so, but don't cheap out because that's going to depend on your accuracy too. I mean,
yeah, and time. Time is money for us. In a professional shop, we're trying to get it done, but we don't want to sacrifice precision and quality, so we're going to use the best tools we can. Oh, I guess we're up here now. So at the end of the video, you saw we just kind of ground this back and molded this, and a lot of this just had to do with matching the aesthetics that Chris was going for with the frame. Once we had the rear section looking the way he wanted, it just becomes a matter of me figuring out the geometry and remating all the material up here and creating a new.
Because it's not safe.
A new seat bed, basically.
We can't have the kids up here. We're going to be welding and stuff. It's just too many people up with tools.
Okay.
We're just trying, with the kind of work that's going on, since there's going to be welding and grinding, we want to be careful with who we have on stage.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
You're fine. We're going to start doing it now. So the material we chose to use for this is 1 1/4 inch wall. It matches the tubing that was already existing on a Sportster frame. We choose a 1/3/4 wall tubing. Again, we're just matching the OEM tubing here. To hit the design aesthetic that Chris wanted, we actually spent some time with like some templates and some welding rods and just trying to get it all visualized out. But at the end, it's really just a matter of making a bend, coping the tubing in, fitting this up, getting the best weld fit we can, getting this aligned and straight, and prep for welding. It's a fairly simple operation in terms of chassis design and chassis work, compared to like me building a wishbone frame that has like 6 bends in rotation. But even the most simple jobs, it's just a matter of taking it as far as you can with precision and accuracy and making it look perfect. The fitment issue we had to be concerned about the whole time was that Chris wanted to fit a 5-inch oil bag in here, and he wanted to bring this down. So we used a mock-up oil bag like this and held it up and just kind of visualized it. We were able to kind of get an idea where we were going to be as far as the drop seat. We knew we wanted to come right back into these cast pieces in the back or forged pieces in the back and fit this tubing right into that nook. Chris has a vision of how he's going to run this into a fender mount and make this all work. So we'll have a seat pan right here, and he's going to kind of have that go into a cowl and into the fender and really go for this flat track look that he's building. So my job is just basically to mate up this tubing the way he wants it to sit, and again create almost a chopper-esque line. Create just a more appealing line here, so it's not such a flat seat pan, and it'll drop the rider down, which drops the center of gravity and makes the bike a little more nimble. So we'll go ahead and show you how we did this, just from experience and.
What do you need? What do you need?
I need my cheat sheet.
Anything.
My cheat sheet.
Oh, it's cheat sheet.
Just from experience and
we're back
cheat
in high
sheets.
school. You got to shove it someplace so you
Right.
can't see. Nobody can see that.
I know how. I basically know what size material I need. So, in bending tubing, laying out your marks is always your first thing. So we know that I know just again from experience and design and working through this in the shop, that it's going to be an 8-inch mark from the end of the tubing. Thank you. And then with that one mark, that's all I really need, because this is just going to be a single bend piece. It's not going to be a rotational piece or a piece with a whole lot of combined bends.
And combined bends, you mean stuff that's going one angle one way, one angle another way?
Yes. Yeah, rotational bends and combination bends where you've got like a wishbone frame where it's going to be like 1, 2, rotate 3, 4, and each bend is in rotation. I've talked about that on the Grease and Gear stage with some of the frame builds I've done.
Hit him with that pipe anytime you feel like, because that's what we do.
Chris?
Extrapolate.
I got nothing for him. All right, so we're coming over here to the bender. This is a Mittler Brothers bender. This is the same bender I have in my shop. I'm a big fan of Mittler Brothers.
That is real similar to the one I have in my shop, except mine is manual, and I have to pull on it, and that one works a lot better.
Yeah, this is hydraulic, so.
Yeah, this is a really nice bender.
What do you need, baby?
Mark.
The retainer for this.
He needs a. It's right over here.
I need to get to these toolboxes now.
I'm pretty much coordinating this whole thing up here. If you can't tell. Real important to this today. Will is so much smarter than me. I try just to stay out of his way. And
Need the lock.
No.
try not to overshadow him, my good looks and my huge physique.
No. Mark.
I'm sexy in a different way, right?
Well, again, this is a Mittler Brothers bender. I'm a big fan of this bender. I build all the frames out of Faith Ground choppers come off this bender. There's alignment on the die that we just line our mark up with, and there is a digital readout to let me know how far we're going to bend. And we're looking for about a 26-degree bend here.
Hey, let the man work, will you?
I'm trying to stay out of his way. It's kind of hard.
So this is an air over hydraulic system. Really, it's just a stomp and go. I step on this pedal,
one of these.
and this die goes ahead, and it's what's called a rotary draw bender. So it is pulling the material around with a backing die right here, and this is the preferred method for bending tubing for chassis work and frame design.
Now, what do you say we were going to?
About 26 degrees.
It's got a digital readout up here. I think you guys might be able to see that on the screen. I don't know. But that is super handy.
Yours is doing that pop thing like mine does. Like it's getting ready to break right there. That's that issue.
What's getting ready to break? What did I say? That bolt?
Yeah.
All right, so now we've got our bend, and it's just a matter of coping this end into the backbone and then sanding this to fit into that sort of odd-shaped notch. Ultimately, we're going to be right here is what we're looking for. Right on.
Will and I have actually been on stage in Sturgis. How many hours was that building that frame? Like 4
Up there
hours?
4 or 5 hours.
4
yeah.
or 5 hours. So now we learn that we got to cook and show some of this because that's just brutal. It's brutal. But he's built whole frames for us on stage.
So, sort of the only real tricky part to all of this is that when this gets notched, there's a rotational component here that has to be considered as to where this is going to fit up against this. It's very close to a straight line, but we ended up wanting to make sure this was centered here, and you're kind of cutting the difference to get as close as you can. And in doing so, there's a slight rotational component, and you basically find that by putting a level or protractor or whatnot, digital level, on here, finding your degree here, and then we essentially just kind of eyeball this where we want it and get, again, another degree measurement off of here. And the difference between those two lines is going to be the rotation that has to be incorporated when notching in order for this to fit properly. In this case, it was a 5-degree difference. So when we go to notch this here, there'll be a 5-degree rotational component that has to be included in the setup.
Chris, how glad were you to be having Will help you with this part of the project?
Listen, this is all super egghead stuff he was talking about.
Oh,
I
man,
said,
this guy is
I
on
want
the
it to
ball.
look like this.
Yeah, he's smart, man. This guy, and he's practiced. He studied his craft.
Well, and you know what? I think the important thing to talk about here is this is an acquired skill set. But the only way you get to understand this is to jump into it.
Hey, I've got
ask
this.
guys like Will for
This
that
is it.
information. It's not unobtainable.
Well, and guys like Will don't mind answering your questions either if you want to start doing this, because Will's also so good at this. He's at the top of the game. It's not like you're going to take business out of Will's mouth. I mean, you're not. So ask questions, and this is where asking a question now, if you're going to be doing this, is going to pay off a lot later. So,
hey, while Will's setting up the tool, I do want to remind you guys, while you're out there having a couple of cold ones and your lunch, down on the boardwalk, we're running a free bike show. It's free to sign up. Tons of prizes, tons of trophies. If you're hanging out here with us for the afternoon, go head down, see Heather. She's at the Cycle Source registration booth. She'll get your bike entered. Looks like we got some cool pulling sleds down there, a couple nice big baggers.
yeah, we got actually pulling sleds down there. They've got the tires on them for dirt, and the front tire on it is divoted so that it goes straight. So get down there and check out that Cycle Source show. Not now. Stay here and watch us.
Just good snug. You'll be fine. It's good. All right, so I've got again, this is another Mittler Brothers tool. This is a notcher. Same one I have in my shop. Actually, this one came from my shop. I have a new one in my shop, so this one went on tour with Grease and Gears, which is very cool.
Wow.
We have a notcher in here that is the same diameter as this backbone. So it is a 1 5/8 inch notcher that's going to give us a tight-fitting cope to the backbone.
Okay.
We bent a 26-degree bend.
I'll be back.
We want these rear legs to be parallel to the long axis of this frame. So this notch needs to be set up at 26 degrees as well. There's simply a degree finder on this notcher. And we just lock it in.
I want one of those things so bad.
Hey, I'll sell it to you cheap.
I'll take that deal off the back of a truck, brother. You know me. I have to do all this with one in my drill press and by hand, finishing out by hand. I mean, man, I love this machine here. But I don't do this every day either, so this for me would be an expensive tool that would sit most of the time. So,
Well, considering we're knocking out 5 to 7 frames a month right now.
Yeah, you build. I mean, I'm gonna do 2 a year, something like that.
And all of our frames are one-off, so it's always a geometry equation, and it's always figuring something out. It's not usually cookie cutter frames.
Yeah.
We build to order. So again, we've got this set at the 26 degree mark. We've got our 1 5/8 inch cutter in here to match the backbone. Now we have to consider that 5-degree rotation that I was speaking of earlier. And in this case, this is always something that you have to visualize. I want to be on this side, and I'm going to be rotating upward this way. So
I screw this up so many times.
yeah,
I've got
fun.
I've got a nice collection of metal, of wrong bent pieces, and more than wrong bend. I'm actually pretty good at bending metal now. Coping metal is an art, man. Because after a while, you're not coping, you're shortening, and it doesn't reach.
You almost have
You know, it looks nice and easy when we get up here and do it, but there's not a week that goes by that I don't end up with scrap, even after doing this for, I've been building frames for the last
That makes
6,
me feel
7
better.
years.
Thank you for saying that. Even if it's not true, that's kind
No,
of
it's very true. You make scrap. And, there's, as a craftsman, and as evolving as a craftsman, there's both the developing the ability to get yourself out of a problem, but there's also the responsibility of knowing when you've gone too far, when something just needs to be scrapped, and not trying to say, oh, I need to save the money and hack something
Right.
together. So there's a certain level where you can save yourself if you miss a mark sometimes, but there's also times where you have to be willing to step back and say, you know what, my customer deserves this level.
This is the
level of work I'm trying to put out, so it's time to scrap this part.
This is a place where I've been in people's shops that are building bikes, and they won't have the cope just right. It's not a tight fit like you're going for, and they fill it in.
Just hammer in a bunch of weld.
They just hammer in a bunch
Yeah.
of weld, and that's
Yeah.
not strong now, and it's not neat, and it's not right. That's the problem.
Depending on the gap, the strength can be sufficient, but the biggest problem you're going to have when you have poor fit up with a frame is that you're going to get an excessive amount of weld draw, and that's just going to create so many alignment problems.
just
And
not
it doesn't
right.
matter how tightly you fixture something, you can still create stress, and when you remove the fixturing, it can still spring out of alignment. So balancing weld draw is super important, and we can talk about that as we're fitting it up. But that, not just the weld draw, but the fitment of the part really will help to eliminate some of that weld draw.
Right on.
And it just, again, is an example of your craftsmanship and your pride in your work, and are you willing to take it that far, or are you just going to take the easy way out and try to save money and hack stuff together?
Yeah. And it sucks because the last frame I built was just wrong, and I ended up scrapping the whole thing. I mean, and it's
Sometimes those mistakes, you learn your best lessons from.
yeah, absolutely.
So again, this is where we put that 5-degree rotation in, and it's just going to be a 5-degree rotation downwards. So this bar now is basically going 5 degrees down
It's the
from
hardest thing
the
for me to
horizontal.
do. Is that
And this cope is going to allow me to fit this in, and it's
Because
going to have a
my
slight
bender-
rotational
my
component when it
bender
comes back here.
because it's
Visually,
not
it
as
still has a
precise as
very
that
good
one,
line.
because
If we
it's
made a
hydraulic
dead nuts
now,
perfect line
but
off
it's
of here with no rotation,
cheaper.
we would be hitting too high here.
Spring
So
back,
for us to hit our
and it-
mark in the center of this little convexity, we want to, or concavity, I'm sorry, we have to put that 5-degree rotation in there. So, we have safety glasses so I can
Oh,
look like
yeah,
I'm doing something
absolutely.
correctly.
So this basically is a lateral or a
It's
horizontal
essentially
mill.
like a horizontal mill.
Horizontal
It's essentially
mill.
like a horizontal mill. And again, we talk about craftsmanship, we talk about progressing in the industry and progressing as a fabricator. I started building frames with just a flap wheel sander like this, and there's absolutely nothing that this can do that this can't do. I can make the same cope with this $70 DeWalt flap wheel. It just takes a little
But
longer.
when you're getting into production
Yeah,
stuff,
it
though,
takes a little
that'd
longer.
kill you. Yeah.
So when I progressed from that, I bought myself a Bridgeport knee mill, and I did a lot of copes off the Bridgeport. And at the time, I was using hole saws instead of end mills, because this cutter is, this is a $300 cutter. So we would use hole saws from Lowe's or whatever, and the end product is just as good because it really comes down to you as the craftsman, you as the professional. Are you going to take the time to care about the product and care about the process? There's 100 ways to get this done, and in the end, it's not settling for anything but what's right. It's just defining what's right and wrong. Using a notcher doesn't make it any more right than using a flap wheel to make this cope, but doing a poor job with the flap wheel isn't
and there
gonna cut
are
it.
some excellent videos out there on YouTube that guys have put out about coping things.
There really are.
By hand.
There really
but
are.
But if you're doing production, this is the way to do it. And,
So we're gonna put our safety glasses on because we're gonna throw some chips here.
or if anybody wanted to buy one of these for Father's Day for me, Amelia.
Just saying.
Just saying's all.
Good idea.
So these notchers use what's called a roughing end mill, and it just literally eats the metal. It's
I was just gonna say it is
Pretty
impressive
amazing.
how that thing eats that quickly.
it just chews it right up. And generally, I would actually whack a bunch of this off with a bandsaw first, which I'm just kind of skipping that process, and that would save the end mill because a bandsaw blade's cheap and a end mill's expensive. So the correct thing to do, the best process would be to whack a diagonal cut just to knock off to about where we are now. That would save a lot of work on the end mill, but
I'm noticing when Will's using our tools, he doesn't worry about those shortcuts that save the tool.
no,
Well,
I don't.
he is-
I want to demonstrate to the public how fantastic this machine is.
Well,
No,
Chris,
listen, man,
Chris, your bike building has now gone off the scale compared to mine. You are now in a completely other level.
Well, only
that tool.
because I have the benefit of having guys like Will in my life, and I spend time with them, and that's really what it takes, man. You want to know how to get from, you know, the simple basics to moving up the next level. You find people around you, have those conversations, get involved with people, because just like Will's happy for me to come to his shop. We spend time together and he passes that knowledge on. I walk away with something I'm going to be able to do on my own for the rest of my life. It's really that simple, you know?
Where's the best place for me to be to point this out to the camera? Will that give me?
Yeah, you can go anywhere.
Okay.
She got you one right here.
Okay.
Rebecca's on it. We got more cameras than CNN.
So after this is coped, this is a subject that I've spent a lot of time talking about on the Greasy Gear stage all over the nation. It's a subject that I've talked about on social media. It's a subject that I discuss with other builders. Social media is awesome. It disseminates so much information, but you got to be careful because there's some guys out there putting some scary, bad information out. And this is one of those areas. When you cope a piece of tubing, especially for chassis work, it looks fantastic with the fish mouth, and it fits against the tubing like a glove. It looks wonderful right up against the tubing. And these guys will shoot their picture right here of this amazing fish mouth, and look at this great fit up. Now, if they weld this to the frame at this point right here, there is nothing more that could not be more wrong. It's terribly scary when I see guys take their final picture of their fit up with a sharp-edged cope, and I know they're going to weld it. I can tell they welded because I see how small the weld is, and that's terrifying with a motorcycle frame.
I'll take those pictures down when I get home.
We are using 1/3/4 wall tubing for a reason. We want that strength. That's the level of strength that we determined with the material. Right now, with this sharp angle, you can see how thin this tubing is out here, okay? In order to actually create the thickness, that weld bead would have to be like 1/2 inch wide and blow all the way back. And I've demonstrated this in my shop with my Dynasty welder turned up to 300. I can't blow through this tubing. TIG welding penetration does not come from massive amounts of power from the machine. It comes from proper fit up and beveling of the tubing, proper preparation of the weld joint. This tubing has got to be sanded back and beveled back so that you can get full penetration of the thickness of this material when you weld it to this frame. That is so important, and it's missed by so many people, and it scares me, and I'm always trying to push this subject and push this subject and push this subject, especially when it comes to somebody building a frame with a neck. If it's raked out at all, even if it's not raked out, there's so much stress on a neck, man. You've got a 30 to 50 inch front end. It's like a huge lever arm. Imagine a big breaker bar and the amount of stress you can put on a neck. That's why companies like Harley gusset the hell out of these front ends, because there's so much stress up there. So if people are more worried about their pretty little cope and their Instagram picture than how to properly fit tubing and weld a safe weld on a neck, they have no business building frames. And I don't want to be negative because I want to pass the information forward, but people have to pay attention to what they're doing. They have to be willing to be humble and learn. Yeah. I didn't know this stuff. I had to learn this stuff. I learned some of it the hard way. I learned a lot of it from being around the right people. I also learned a lot of it from just opening books and not settling on just what one person told me. I really needed to check the resources and check the information. I tell people all the time, don't take my word for it, man. Go out there and find the information. It's out there. You're not going to find an exceptional welder or designer that's going to tell you it's okay to weld a sharp razor edge fish mount coping tube that's coped at 26 degrees. That's just simply unsafe.
You want to ask questions. If you're going to get a custom bike built by a local shop or something, don't be afraid to ask questions, because you're going to put your butt on that bike and you're going to go down the road 60, 70 miles an hour. That's your life. So ask questions.
So all that being said, I'm going to show you what I need to do now. I'm going to take this over to the belt sander. I'm going to sand back this material until I'm close to the material thickness, and I'm going to bevel the material such that when I place it against this tubing, I can essentially get down in there and fill the bevel with the TIG torch. I'll essentially have less than about a 1/16 of an inch of material to actually penetrate through. Now remember, 1/16 inch is 0.61 or 0.62, and this material is 0.134, so it's a quarter of that distance.
Is that charged?
It's less than half that distance.
Yes, sir. Sander.
Am I going to mess up any of their stuff sanding right here?
Is it going to mess this stuff up? No, go ahead. This is our stage until we get off. If it screws up, there's something, man. No, I was just kidding.
glasses.
What do you
I've
need?
got them on. Never mind.
Again, if you're just joining us, we're Greasing Gears Garage. We travel around the country with all of our tools and whatnot. We come up on stage, we set up a garage, we want to invite you into it. We invite one of our friends, a custom motorcycle builder, onto stage with us to show us one thing that they typically do day in, day out basis in their shop. And we're here by the grace of Progressive Motorcycle Insurance and their partners Castrol and Indian Motorcycles. So we do appreciate them bringing us to Ohio Bike Week. We're traveling around the country, several different rallies with them throughout the year. If you're interested in just seeing tutorials by top of the industry custom bike builders on things like this from Will Ramsey for Faith Forgotten Choppers, you can go to our YouTube channel. It's Greasing Gears Garage. You can go there and you can look at all those things that we've been doing all over the country this year.
Does anybody that's here in the crowd with us do this kind of work now? Anybody do frame stuff in their garage?
Anybody? Anybody? Not you? They wouldn't have guessed that.
You
Wouldn't have
interested?
guessed.
You do motors? You're hanging out with us, so
Come
you're
on up
interested.
here.
Come on
Come
up
around
here.
this side. Oh, go around. No, go around that side. I just want to see how many directions I could get you to follow at one time.
All right, guys, if you can see this now, you can see after I've sanded this back how much different this looks. There's no razor edge. I've essentially got the full wall thickness of the material right here.
Come on.
At this point, when I weld around here, I'm welding right to the inside diameter of the
Let me
tubing,
grab you a pair of
and I'm able to
safety
fill it
glasses.
out. And my weld is going to be as
your name?
thick as the
Russ, good to meet
material
you.
itself. It's going to be as strong. It's essentially going to be stronger. So now we fit this up. We still have a perfect fit with the inside diameter. And this is what I want to see when I see somebody posting stuff on Instagram.
Yeah.
I want to see an absolute tight fit. And I want to see the material sanded back so that now one pass weld here and it's going to be as strong as it can be. So
Will, this is Russ. He's checking you out.
all right, Russ.
He's a
good to
motor
see you.
guy.
Good to see you. So
Don't wash that hand. That touched Will Ramsey.
that's a great fit, but I'm going to show you something. And this just, it comes with the tools, it comes with the territory. If I line this up where I want to line it up, if the cameras are picking this up, you guys will see this
get
come
around
away
it.
and there's a gap back here now, right? Okay, that gap is not what I want. Now when I cut this tubing ahead of time, I left stock just for this. I knew that I would be coping this in 2 or 3 steps in, and then I was going to be sanding back here to cope it in. So even when you do all your calculations, and I know I'm 26 degrees on that bender and I'm 26 degrees on this dial gauge, you get spring back with the material, that could be slightly off. I don't have a protractor with me to actually measure if this is truly 26. We could be 25, 25 and a half. And again, this is just a dial, basically a dial ring around here that could be accurate or could not be accurate. So even though you have all the numbers right, it's the responsibility of the craftsman to leave themselves just enough stock to work it in, knowing that when I fit this up and line it up, maybe a degree off. So I will just make the correction over here, come back, touch it again with the end mill, and keep fitting this up. I know that I want to be centered right here. That's not going to change, and we want this to be in line with the long axis of the bike. So it's just a matter of right now it's actually headed out slightly to the right, which is good because I need to bring this in a little bit. And as I find the proper angle for this cope, I can just scoot it in. This will start to line up, and we'll have a good fit. We'll be ready to weld. So let me just kiss it again real quick.
And these are skills too. I mean, like if you're going to be able to roll cage, you know,
Okay.
this all
Time.
these principles
We're doing okay on time.
go around in a lot of different kind of applications for home builders. You know, and the that spring back that he's talking about, you might get frustrated. You know, but spring back is something you're going to have to take into account for. My bender at home, actually, I've converted it from a manual bender to a hydraulic bender, but it's not as fancy as that one. It doesn't have a digital readout and all the rest. It's not as hefty as that one. And so, you know, you've got to account for that. Don't get frustrated when those things happen, but do remember, go back and correct it. And if you haven't corrected it, it's better to have it right than to just say that'll do. You don't. That'll do is never good when you're looking for quality work and craftsmanship.
So I got this thing back in the vise, and I've got that 5-degree rotation. Now, when I fit this against the
I don't know why everybody
tubing,
else
it
got
was
safety glasses. You can
gapping.
get
Once
right
I got
over there
this
and watch
lined
that.
up
That's
the way I
fascinating.
wanted, it was gapping at the back. Okay, so it means I need to remove more from the front end of this. So I'm just going to cheat the bender over about 3 degrees. Right there. That'll be close. I'm going to lock it in. Crank it up. I'm going to feed it on in.
Do you have that business
See that it
card I
touches
gave
in
you
the
for
front.
patch guy?
And I've got just about the amount of gap that I saw
mention his name.
here. So I'm going to go ahead and just let it feed
You want me to dig for it, please?
until it cleans up the whole tube again.
We've already gotten in trouble for that.
Right about there. Back it off. Shut her down. Break her loose. All right, we've got our fish mount, our super sharp edge again. So it's the same thing. It's fit, sand, and repeat. You can simply sit here and fit it up without sanding it back. You just have to sand it back before you weld it. And
That's starting to look good now.
I'm right there. I'm really, really, really close. I'm still coming out just a little bit, so I'm right about there. We'll go ahead and dress this back. I'm gonna touch it one more time. Close enough never seems to work for me.
We get a lot of help with stuff
I have a
from
hard time
rallies
with that
around the
phrase.
way. Everybody's always helping us out. We needed some patches shown on for Castrol, who is one of Progressive's motorcycle insurance partners. And so Spleather, no, it's actually SP Leather, but it spells Spleather on the card. But it's SP Leather here, right from Cleveland, Ohio.
Right up the street here.
It says Yo-Yo handmade in the 216. No, I added the Yo-Yo, but it's handmade in the 216. They're right around the corner here, over there by the main stage. If you guys would go by and tell them thank you for dressing Patrick today.
Looks good.
That'll be nice. So you can keep that if you want.
So coming up later today, we have, if anybody out there is interested in TIG welding, wants to start down the road of TIG welding, I know that's a really intimidating subject. We have Austin Andrella from Austin
Austin Martin Original.
Austin Martin Original, sorry.
That's all right.
He's coming up and he's going to do a whole tutorial here at 5 o'clock, right?
5 o'clock.
And he's going to do a tutorial on the beginnings of TIG welding, helping you to understand what to look for in the weld, different, dissimilar metals. He's going to show you a little bit of weld porn.
Yeah, welding is one of the biggest things I think that holds people back from wanting to do a lot of different projects around their house. You're in the shop, well, I can't weld, so I can't do that. Listen, guys, welding is not the most difficult thing in the world to do. I weld, and I do very few things well. I'm a jack of all trades, but I can TIG weld, I can MIG weld. It just takes practice, and it's not that expensive to get into either. You can go to Eastwood, and right there in Cleveland, they've got one of 3 North American stores that you can walk in that Eastwood has, is right here in Cleveland. You can walk in there and get a welder, and you can also get some good instruction there as well.
All right, guys. We got it sanded back again. Now we have a really good fit. And hopefully the camera can get that and show you guys how good the fit is right here.
Do you need to move that?
No, that's good.
No, I don't want to move it.
Yeah, I'm real happy with that. It's sanded back. I'm going to be able to get full penetration. The fit is really tight. That's the kind of stuff you'd love to see on Instagram. Hopefully people will post more pictures like that.
Well, here, let's do one right now. I'm going to hashtag this. I don't have a camera.
Here's a camera right here. Watch what I can do. I can take a picture.
We're going to hashtag this the right way from the progressive stage.
Right way to penetrate.
That's why you don't get a microphone, Mark.
Right.
That is. He's right.
So this was a section